Hello, welcome to another Starground devlog. What have I been up to? A lot of stuff. But I've been working on adding more content for Starground. And if you're new to the channel and don't know what that is, you can check out Devlog 0 on the channel. But as a TLDR, it's a multiplayer game with both automation and roguelike elements. So anyways, on to what I've added. So finally gotten work done on the dungeoning pillar and have sort of begun to get that playable. I worked on some code for dungeon generation, and as a recap, essentially it generates a map of coordinates of rooms from the starting position. It then converts those coordinates into world positions and then assigns a random room to each one. In game, you can see how that ends up with a bunch of rooms connected together. I haven't gotten the doors, enemies, or really anything else inside the dungeons done, but the foundation of what these dungeons will become is complete. And of course, this all works in multiplayer as well. So you're gonna need a way to get to the dungeons, so my solution was initially a spaceship, but since there's a few issues with that related to multiplayer, I decided to change it to the star launcher. So all the dungeons are located on moons around the solar system. So the star launcher is a way for the player to get to them. You can navigate the map, select where you want to go, and launch. This doesn't have an animation yet, but it will soon. I'll definitely be adding more dungeons to the screen in the future, but for now we just have the basic first dungeon implemented. Yeah. Now on to the automation side of things. I didn't work as heavily on this since I already had a bunch of stuff done, but the additions still definitely are important. First off is the long range mover. This works essentially the exact same as the regular mover, but it can cross over other objects. So for example, if you have two belts going by, you can grab from the far belt instead of the close one. And this is super important for automation that requires multiple types of resources, so they don't have to mix lines. And you can keep a backlog of items on a belt for each ingredient. I also changed the old scrolling building method into a dedicated UI. So instead of having to just scroll your wheel to select your object, now you can navigate through the different building categories to find everything you need. I'll be adding costs for the building soon, and essentially that'll just take the required materials out of your inventory. So that's all for what I've already added, but I spent a lot of time planning out future stuff too, so I want to explain all that. So the first is how weapons will work in Starground. My plan is to implement a modular weapon system. So all weapons will be made out of parts instead of finding or crafting them in there outright. For example, a sword would be composed of a handle, handguard, and a blade. You can swap the pieces out for different ones you find in the dungeons. And the quality of that weapon will be based off of the individual parts rather than the whole weapon itself. I think this just makes weapons much more interesting. It's not just the continual march of this weapon is better than that weapon, but you know, it's like, what qualities do I value, and making a trade-off. It requires more decision making and conscious thought. And the second is how automatic mining will work. There's a lot of back and forth on what exactly I wanted for this, but thanks to all the great ideas from the community, we'll be going with a drone-based miner. So essentially you can build a base station that sends out a bunch of little robot bees to mine all the resources in the surrounding area. They bring the resources back to the base station, which can then be taken from with a mover and put onto a conveyor. And then you can do whatever you want with it. The reason for this approach is that the resources in Starground spawn around the map randomly. It's not like Factorio where the resource deposits are like a stationary stain on the surface, so it's necessary to have a miner that can adapt to all sorts of resource positions. I'll also have a whitelisting system so you can extract the resources you want and get rid of others you don't. And this will work really similarly to how the player mines things too, so just a little bonus. But that's gonna wrap things up for this devlog. If you want to keep up to date with the game, you can join the Discord in the link below. I also stream on Twitch and YouTube every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday through PM MST. And if you want to support development of the game, you can do just that at our Ko-fi link below. Totally optional. You don't have to. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a 4 o'clock.